Tech Sideline is presented by First Bank and Trust Company, the bank that puts you first. They can meet your banking and financing needs for personal, agricultural, business, commercial, mortgages, and so much more. Visit firstbank.com to learn more.
What's up, Hokie Nation? And welcome into episode 486 of the Tech Sideline podcast. An athletics-related LLC is seemingly coming to Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech baseball heads back to the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2022. All that and much more coming up in episode 486 of the Tech Sideline podcast, which starts right now. And we record on Wednesday, May 27, 2026 from the Tech Solutions studio in the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center. Remember to like, subscribe, and refer the show to a friend. I'm your host, Carter Hill. To my left is our founder and general manager, Mr. Will Stewart. Across the way is our managing editor, Mr. David Cunningham. To his left is our senior staff writer, Andy Bitter. And Nick Brown, our director of media, is producing behind the scenes. Guys, Memorial Day weekend is come and gone. David was in Charlotte this weekend. Summer is here, and the news continues to roll on for Virginia Tech athletics. So Chris is in Europe right now. That's why he's not currently on the set, but I'm sure we'll get his thoughts when he returns next week. But just kind of getting right into this thing. So the Virginia Tech Board of Visitors, again, as always, I feel like we gather here once every, 3-4 months and talk about some BOV meeting. This is sports to a T right now in 2026. The Virginia Tech Board of Visitors is set to meet in person next week on June 1st with the intention of voting on the approval of an athletics-related LLC, which will be called Hokie Ventures. This will run in conjunction with the athletic department to help enhance the business operations in today's day and age. I'm going to ask the question like a 5-year-old a little bit. What exactly is an LLC, and what does it mean for Virginia Tech athletics?
Well, I think I need somebody to answer that for me myself. I don't really know the business side of all this stuff. I think the big picture thing to take away from this is that they are separating what was previously the athletic director's job into two different jobs. That has become too big for one person. There are different skills that you have to have in that job. There's obviously an athletics component that traditional ADs have had, but now look at the money that's involved with this thing. You need somebody with that business background. You need somebody with sort of CEO experience. And, looking at some of these out of the box hires that these schools have made, some of them have ventured more towards the business side. Professional sports people, one from the Braves, I think. I can't remember where he went exactly. One of these schools, I think NASCAR background and some of these. So that just splits it up. So you can still have somebody who has that athletics mindset, that understands coaches, understands players, the student athlete experience. They always have to put that in there. And then there's a side that's going to have a CEO that's just going to push business stuff, sponsorships, title sponsors. I think there'll be some NIL involved in that. If private equity becomes involved, I think this is a way to do it. Again, I would need somebody smarter than me to talk about the benefits of having an LLC and having it separated in a different space within the university like this. But I think it, from what I've seen, it offers them some financial flexibility. Perhaps they can access funds more quickly than what they were able to do in the past. I think that's been a big issue that they've had. So there are certainly positives to this. And honestly, I'm not going to be here next week for the Board of Visitors meeting, but I hope David, gets Jay Pearson on the record, because Jay Pearson knows business stuff. So he would be able to explain all this in great detail.
I will read you the definition of an LLC.
Yeah, please do.
Carter, a flexible business structure that protects owners' personal assets from business debts and lawsuits. This is like in Office Space when they're like, how big of nerds are we? We're looking up money laundering in the dictionary. It's like we're looking up an LLC in the dictionary here.
Now, that said, I don't think that's the major focus of what tech is doing here, but you're right.
I wanted to read the definition for Carter. Yeah, they're essentially separating the financial component. We obviously have covered very heavily the Board of Visitors meeting in the fall, August or September, when they approved $229 million of fundraising. And they formed an athletics committee all for the Board of Visitors where they're overseeing the money. And this is kind of just an extra step, more of a full-time step, where you're now going to have a CEO that will oversee all of the things listed there. So optimizing revenue generation, seeking new business opportunities, enhancing VT donor engagements and fan experience. Basically taking a lot of the financial stuff off of an athletic director's plate. And other schools, Clemson, Kentucky, there are a handful of others, Utah, I think, that have gone in similar directions, doing different things. Virginia Tech, I think, is kind of combining them, doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, sprinkling them in here. But the financial flexibility, as Andy led to, I think it will allow them to basically monitor the funds and making sure they're getting the most out of the money that they're putting in. And at the same time, it will allow the athletic director, the next person hired, to, I think, be more of a traditional athletic director and not have to worry as much about the money and just kind of manage sports teams, if that makes sense. Like
Operations.
kind of split up the money and operations into two jobs instead of them having to do all of this. I'm interested to see what the restructuring below it looks like and who fills in Hokie Ventures LLC and what that looks like, because they're going to have other employees. But this is kind of just the bones, the structure so far.
Well, you don't set up something where you're giving athletics $230 million like they are doing and then just say, have at it, right? You're going to want some oversight on that. You want some people with business savvy, overseeing that money. And I think this is what that is. They're not just writing a check to athletics and going, just go have fun with this money. We'll see if you can do a better job than you have in the last 15 years with this. No, they're going to have some people that understand what they're doing on the business side. And I think if there is communication between those two sides, then I think that is beneficial, because, the business side of that is not going to understand the athletic side. Athletics sometimes will not understand all the business dealings that go on with that. But if there's communication there and there's overlap between those two entities, then I think that's a good thing.
And the reporting structure of this will be very interesting too, because now to go with a new university president, you're hiring a new athletic director, and you're also hiring a new CEO.
Yeah. AD, CEO, new head of the Hokie Club, new president. I mean, this is I know the school president is not specifically sports, but these are 4 people heavily involved in sports and their duties and their oversight. So it's a complete overhaul of leadership within the athletic department and even beyond that. And they'll have to get these hires right. Everybody will always say this is a critical time in athletics. You have to get this thing right for whatever the next iteration of sports is coming around. 2030, I think, is when a lot of people are expecting some other major shift, whether it's conference realignment or conference consolidation or a breakaway or whatever is coming. I don't think anybody knows exactly what it's going to be, but you want to have your athletic department in tip-top shape and be as attractive as possible for whenever that's going to be.
And it helps you have a new football coach. Something else I want to point out on the slide on the other side, on the left side, under the Virginia Tech's part, it says athletic director has the right to call funds. So as far as the financial component goes, I guess it's kind of like you're housing your money somewhere else and you have people overseeing your money almost, but you can call funds if you feel necessary, but otherwise they're kind of monitoring the funds for you and making sure that as a university, Virginia Tech is getting its return on investment. But it says there, the university continues to set strategic direction for VT athletics and maintains institutional control. So there's a lot of spider webs here as far as like who's in charge of what, but it basically separating out the money. And it will be very interesting, again, the reporting structure of what it looks like as far as what the athletic director can do, what the CEO can do. If the head of the Hokie Club factors into this as far as fundraising goes, because the new head of the Hokie Club will kind of be in between a little bit between Hokie Ventures as far as enhancing donor engagements goes and the actual athletic department. Like this is all kind of in the same pot, but separated out a little bit.
So I have lots of thoughts. I was taking notes while you guys were talking. First of all is the first one's kind of tongue in cheek. So we're doing the podcast with Bud Foster, and they're sponsored by Lunch Pail Ventures. So Virginia Tech rolls this plan out and it says Hokie Ventures LLC. And I'm sure the LPV people are just going, oh, come on. Did you have to use the word ventures? Now people are going to get confused. And that's half tongue in cheek, half not. But
they're sort of modeling this after what Clemson did and Clemson Ventures. So it's like, come on, there's got to be a better name for these things, right?
Which segues into the first major point I wanted to make, that Virginia Tech studied other athletic departments and really went into detail about what they're doing and how some of them have similar structures to this. And according to Virginia Tech, what they're doing is unique. And the thing that's unique about it is that the athletic director will sit on the board of the LLC and will have voting privileges. Apparently that is not a tie-in that exists anywhere else in the country. And, you know, Andy, correct me on any of this if I'm wrong, and David, the same, because you've studied this stuff. As we were talking, I was thinking, Hokie Ventures is in charge of the money. I wonder if by separating it out into a separate entity that it becomes faster and easier to handle the money part of the business.
To access.
As opposed to, not just access, but as opposed to what constraints are put on you. Like we've all studied this athletic department for years, and the hoops they have to jump through because this is a public university. And there are all sorts of laws and regulations and stuff surrounding that. I'm not saying they're trying to get around that stuff. I'm just saying I wonder if Hokie Ventures, in terms of generating funds, can be more nimble. Yeah, and you're right. So the athletic director will work, and the athletic department will work closely with them to make sure things are in alignment. And it is very much the AD can go, okay, I'll take my money now, and they'll send it over. But they've all talked about it and agreed on where things are going. So a lot of athletic departments are doing this around the country. I think there's a very few select athletic directors in the country who do understand the whole big national picture and can function within it. I don't think there are a lot of ADs like that. I think that tends to be more of the mindset of a conference commissioner. Like Greg Sankey gets the whole landscape because he's not having to run an athletic department every day, and he's probably not even really running the SEC. You know, he's got operational people to do that. So I got to thinking about it, and I don't think that there historically or in the moment are a lot of athletic directors who can grasp all of this, the operational part of what they do, plus the money generation part of what they do. Jim Weaver was really good with the money, but he wasn't really good about finding new ways to generate it. He kind of rode that wave of Virginia Tech football getting big, and the money just kind of grew organically. He knew how to spend it, put it into facilities and things like that. And boy, he knew how to run a profit. He left quite a reserve fund, you know, when he was finished as athletic director. So I don't think historically ADs can deal with the complexity of what goes on at the national picture and in college athletics.
Well, I think they can. It's a matter of, do you want them to have to?
Right.
You know, there's only so much time in the day, and there are only so many things you can worry about. It's kind of like, you know, these football staffs and, you know, head coaches and assistant coaches could do a lot of the scouting and stuff in the transfer portal and the recruiting side of it, but they have built out these enormous, you know, player personnel staffs and hired GMs to handle that stuff and take it off their plate so that they can focus on the football side of it more. You know, could James Franklin do the scouting and, you know, the NIL and everything that's involved in being a head coach? Absolutely. But he hires other people that he trusts to do a lot of that stuff, so he doesn't have to solely do that. That opens him up to be, you know, the CEO type at the top of a program and the face of a program and doing all the recruiting that he has to do on top of that other stuff. I think you know, we haven't seen a lot of these things in effect for a long time. So who knows if this is just trendy and this is what people are doing, or if this is like actually the best way to do this. It'll be interesting to see that. But I think on paper, it makes sense.
It all sounds good on paper.
Yeah, it does allow you to split stuff off and split off duties to other people and delegate responsibilities. So it's not all on one person's plate.
There is. So this all sounds, like we talked about, this all sounds good on paper. You see the structure, it looks really good. People always screw things up. Maybe this gets started off with the right people. Who the CEO running the LLC is great. He works really good with the AD. And then One of those jobs cycles or the other job cycles, or they both cycle. And then you wind up with people who have their own interests that they put first. It all looks good on paper, but long term, how will it do?
And also, you're hiring an AD. How would the AD feel about this?
Right.
Oh, there's another thing I have to deal with here that's, sort of a parallel track that, equal footing within the athletic department of the university. Some ADs might just like to have control of that,
right,
and be in charge of that. So it's kind of like when you're hiring a football coach, and they eventually did hire the football coach and then brought the GM on after that. They initially were going to hire the GM first, and then they got feedback that said head coaches don't really like that if they have to answer to a GM. So it will be interesting to see, because like you said, it sounds like they're doing something unique in college sports, or a little bit different from what other places have structured it.
Brandon Hall,
Yes.
Virginia Tech Athletics CFO, he was at Clemson when Clemson founded Hokie Ventures in 2024. And I pulled up Clemson's press release from 2024 and wanted to kind of sprinkle in some of what it said, because it might help everyone understand what Virginia Tech is kind of doing. Hokie Ventures is designed with a true private sector business structure and full service marketing and NIL agency capabilities to drive revenue. That's what Clemson put out. An initiative created by Director of Athletics Graham Neff, Hokie Ventures further integrates the university's integral multimedia rights with comprehensive sales, media, marketing, NIL agency, and business operations. So you're expanding business maybe outside of, I don't want to say that you're maybe tied down to necessarily as far as being aligned directly as part of a university, but you were talking about having more wiggle room a little bit. I can imagine some of this falls under that umbrella of just being a little bit more free to generate revenue in different ways.
Yep.
Nothing gets more jargony in business terms than like when they roll this stuff into a presentation, and it sounds like you're like, am I listening to like a PR pitch or something like this? It just seems like the business side of things gets so especially jargony that sometimes I just like, can somebody just explain this to me and cut through the crap and just explain to me what this actually means? Because sometimes, listen, I'm a sports writer. I'm obviously not a business person. So I would love to hear from somebody who's a business person that can just put these in the plainest terms of how this whole thing works.
How long do you think this has been in the works, by the way? And do you think this has anything to do with the timing of Whit Babcock's retirement?
No, I think this was in the works from the second that they approved the Invest to Win plan.
Okay, September 30th.
Yeah.
I think Whit was going to operate within this framework until deciding to retire or being encouraged to retire, however you want to frame that whole thing. But I think this has been in the works ever since that August presentation last year, because I don't think they were going to give them the money and just say, have at it. They were going to go, here's the money, but we're going to set up this structure to make sure we know where this money's being spent or can have a little bit of control over it.
Yeah, I think I would agree. And I think they've done, like, they founded the athletics committee, and there's the AIOC, the advisory committee. I mean, they are monitoring the money very, very, very closely.
Well, what is AIOC? I know what the group is. What
the
is
Athletics
the
Investment Oversight Committee.
Okay, thank you.
So they've got an athletics committee, and then they've got an investment oversight committee for athletics.
They do love them some committee.
but like, and now you've got this LLC with the CEO, and like this just is, they want to make sure their money is going to the right places and they're getting a return on investment. Because the last thing you want to do, as Andy said earlier, if you are investing this giant sum into athletics, is waste it. And that relationship between the CEO of Hokie Ventures and how that operates financially and how that money transfers back and forth with the AD running the athletic department, it's going to be such an interesting relationship, because those people have to be on the same page.
This is a huge change. If you go back just a year or two, you had a single athletic director, didn't even have a CFO, if you go back a couple of years. wasn't getting much oversight, if any, from the BOV, and there was no oversight committee. So this is an enormous, I know this is Captain Obvious reporting for duty, but this is an enormous change in the way that they do things, and that's a good thing.
Well, it goes back to Witt sounding the alarm on athletics, I think, as a whole, back in, was that June or July?
August, middle
August last year, before they approved all of this. I think it really caught some people by surprise, but also opened eyes, and it's like, hey, you know, I'm not saying that Witt was like, hey, we need oversight, but like, we got to be on the ball. And when you've got pencil pushers, people on the board of visitors that want to get stuff done, especially in an athletics sense, you put people in positions where they can impact immediately and quickly and constantly. And then you evolve to where you're forming an LLC where those people are going to, and the board of visitors is still involved in this as well, but all these people are going to be able to have their hands on it. I'm not saying they're going to be able to impact it anytime they want, but they're going to be able to have a direct impact often. Whereas before it was kind of just like athletics is off doing its own thing constantly.
Hey, good report. See you next quarter.
And now it's going to be like all eyes are going to be on athletics and on the money and on what you're doing constantly.
Looking back, I can see how this would be like right up James Franklin's alley. Like, I imagine they gave him the broad strokes of what they were imagining this whole setup being when he was going through the hiring process. And just knowing him a little bit from following him for 6 months here, or covering him for 6 months here, just everything is very detailed. He likes a plan. You know, how many times has Jay Pearson or Ryan McCarthy mentioned that he carries around that presentation with him? I feel like setting this up and structuring it, and obviously the head football coach here is going to have a big say in a lot of this. I mean, he'll have his hands in a lot of different areas. I feel like for somebody like Franklin, who leaves no stone unturned, this is exactly what he was looking for in a situation he loves.
Yeah, I'm sure that was part of the hook. Was, listen, James, so we'd like to hire you, and we have big ideas about what we want to do. We're at the very beginning of this. It's fair to say that almost none of it is in place, but you can, and so I know that's difficult from a standpoint of being able to come in and hit the ground running, but we're going to have a new athletic director. I think that was pretty much decided while they were talking to him. School president's only going to be here another, at that point in time, year and a half. Turned out to be a lot shorter than that. So even though he was starting from ground zero, it had to be very attractive to have some input and influence over those all of these things.
I go back to the August, I guess it was August presentation down at the River Course, where we listened to Amy Sebring and Simon, I'm forgetting his last name, Wilson maybe, the university's CFO, COO, CFO, money people. And they were, Witt's talking about
Simon Allen.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Talking about the money it takes now to compete and what it takes from a university side in terms of investments. And the back and forth was kind of that, Amy Sebring and her team over on the academic side, university side, they were going to crunch the numbers and make this work. And I imagine that this is something where now that this is in place, it is much easier to make those numbers work however you need them to work all the time. Even as far as we know the revenue sharing is going from 20.5 million, it will increase to 21.3 million. It's okay, you've got to have a little bit more wiggle room in your budget now. You got to dedicate a little bit more of a sliver of money. Where does that come from? And the university side is signing off on this as well, which I think is important, that everyone is kind of on the same page as how they're instituting this before they hire people to kind of run the ship in that direction, if that makes sense.
I'd be curious to see what kind of results they can get out of this right away. Splitting this off, does this mean they could maybe work a better Nike deal or a better apparel deal because you have a business person in charge of that maybe can branch off into different directions or leverage different things. I don't know. Like, I'd like to see it in practice to see exactly what some of the new revenue streams or different revenue streams they can pursue will be.
They can deal with like sponsors on the field too and everything, right? Naming rights for
title
Lane Stadium.
sponsors, naming rights. I think that'll all be under the CEO's purview.
Yeah.
That reminds me way back when Jim Weaver was doing the West Side expansion. This is documented on Tech Sideline somewhere. He was including, I think the cost of that thing was $55 million, which sounds gloriously cheap years later. And I think part of his plan was it was either 10 or 20 million in naming rights that never materialized. And I don't know enough to know if that was because they didn't have the right people trying to make it materialize. If it's just the market, what are you going to do? Go ask Carillion for yet more money for naming rights for something? It's different than being in Texas, being in Los Angeles, being in Miami, and having all these huge corporations around being able to say, hey, slap your name on our stadium, here, give us $10 million, we'll put your name on our stadium. So that kind of stuff has existed in the past. So I'm interested in seeing, will this LLC be able to create and leverage more opportunities than that?
Yeah. PK's Stadium.
Sign me up. Sign me up. PK's Stadium. I love it.
And I wanted to add Playfly, obviously, which replaced Learfield.
Yeah.
It kind of deals with that. And I heard some rumblings at one point that they were trying to get like a on-field sponsor logo, but things kind of just didn't process all the way. But I wonder if you now have this, if it's more appealing. There's a lot.
I get you.
This just in terms of having a CEO, having more business people, business-minded people driving at this, if this opens up more.
You could. Will those people be able to sell it better and service it better?
And I don't know how that relationship will work.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Carter, I wanted to touch on one more thing from the BOV presentation. Nick, there's a slide for Invest to Win resource allocations. This is slightly different from, yes, there you go. This is slightly different from Hokie Ventures, but this is something else of note. Just essentially, Brandon Hall is going to provide an Invest to Win update on these 33 million upgrades, which includes the new video board in Lane Stadium.
So be clear how you talk about it for people who are just listening and can't see the slide.
Yes. There are facility enhancements and budgetary and personnel increases. They're spending $33 million on Invest to Win investments right now. Part of that is Lane Stadium LED lighting, which they're doing right now. The new video board that's going to come this summer.
To be clear, they were replacing that before the skydiver.
Yes.
Yes. They're not replacing that because of the skydiver.
Not a result of that.
If you drive it right now, it still looks like the skydiver's up there because they got the two cranes that are like hammering down on the video board. It looks very similar.
They did fix that before graduation.
They did. I give them credit.
But basketball recruiting lobby enhancement is down there. Football recruiting lobby hallways office enhancements.
$2.9 million.
$2.9 million for the recruiting
serious
lobby.
renovation in Merriman and maybe adding some office space in that whole area.
Yeah. $4.9 million for the video board and $2.4 million for the LED lighting. And then, of course, budget and personnel increases for football, which is $9.3 million. Men's and women's basketball, $1.4. That totals up to $19 million when you add in administrative and strategic initiatives, which is $5.6. So that's something that Brandon Hall will talk about at the BOV meeting, just kind of how they're spending a chunk of this money.
And when is that coming up?
That is June 1 to
1st and 2nd.
next
you are
week.
going to be there.
Yeah, Andy and Chris are both out of town. Lucky me.
And I'm lazy. So you'll be there.
It'll be it'll be a jam-packed just between this and Hokie Ventures and Doug Bowman pointed it out on Twitter, kind of buried deep down in the 1,400 slides or 1,500 slides for this presentation.
Released after midnight.
That they released at 12:05
a.m.
I was
on a Saturday.
literally going up to sleep, and I saw Teal texting me. He's like, they just released it. I'm like, gotta be kidding me. So I was up to like 2:30 writing stuff for the next morning. That felt intentional. 12:05. Come on.
They're going to, one of the other things is
business hours you can send this out.
they're going to vote on amending the bylaws for like the rector and vice rector. And you have 2-term limits right now. They amended the bylaws previously for John Rakovich to serve a third term as rector, but they're going to vote on amending the bylaws, no term limits for rector and vice rector.
Serve in perpetuity.
Well, you still have to be voted on the Board of Visitors, essentially, but unlimited power for a rector or a vice rector, essentially. So there's a lot more than just the Hokie Ventures part. That is obviously what everyone's attention is drawn to with this BOV meeting coming up, but it's going to be jam-packed, Carter.
So Carter, before you continue, I'd just like to point out there is nothing in there for the softball stadium. Absolute zero.
It says Olympic teams, $2.7 million.
I'm talking about
you're talking about on the left
facilities.
side.
Eventually.
Yeah.
You know, so if you want to date the BOV meeting back to August, you know how you can do it? Our first podcast, I looked at this yesterday. Our first podcast on this new podcast set was previewing the BOV meeting at the River Course in the middle of August. Episode 4, that was the first podcast on the new podcast set.
What a sexy topic.
in the completed podcast.
In the completed one.
You guys did
everything
a couple
on
of
camera.
like, you know, surrounded by sawdust and just like
We came in with
no
like
cameras.
flip flops on and like shorts and t-shirts. It was great. It was a good time.
We've come a long. Virginia Tech has come a long way since then. And just think, I mean, by the time I think the president will probably take the longest to hire of all of these positions, the university president. But once the university president is hired, you will have a new president, a new AD, a new CEO, a new head of the Hokie Club, and a new football coach, all within 365 days, maybe a little bit longer than that.
By the way, if you guys had to guess, how many ACC schools do you think have an on-field sponsor right now? Just a side note. If you had to guess.
Out of what, 16?
18?
18.
Yeah, 17 for football.
How many we got here now?
17 for football.
Right. Notre Dame's the 18th.
How?
I don't know, 9.
8.
It's a pure guess. I have no idea.
5.
That's
5.
it.
Cal, NC State, Carolina, SMU, Virginia.
Cal, NC State,
Virginia.
Carolina,
Virginia
SMU,
does. I'm surprised
Virginia.
Miami doesn't. This is according to the New York Post.
I'm surprised BC doesn't.
Me neither.
So who does Virginia have?
Upstack.
I just
What
looked
is
that
that?
up. Upstack. That came
Their
out.
CEO's a UVA person, I'm sure.
It debuted in the release came out in November of last year, like November 19th. So it was a late thing.
Just in time for the Virginia Tech game.
The deal was put together by Playfly. Upstack's logo will appear between the 20 and 30 yard lines at each end of the field.
What's an Upstack? Please take valuable time, a little bit of dead air here while you look it up.
Oh, yes. Upstack's founder and CEO, Chris Trapp, played linebacker at UVA from 2001 to 2003.
Really?
Sports Business Journal's article on it does not explain what Upstack is.
By the way,
Brokerage and advisory?
Carolina and NC State are both State Farm. Copying Talking with Teal. Copying Talking with Teal.
We are trendsetters here.
All right. And with that, let's step aside and hear from one of our title sponsors here on TechSideline.com.
This Tech Sideline video comes to you from the Tech Solutions studio. Tech Solutions, located in Arlington, Virginia, provides specialized CETA engineering and financial advisory services to the Department of Defense and Intelligence community. Based on the philosophy of only hiring the best of the best, we pride ourselves on being customer and mission focused. A Washington Post top workplace winner in 2024 and 2025, we're always looking for talented and motivated individuals to join our team. Visit techsolutionsva.com/careers to learn more. That is TEC Solutionsva.com/careers.
And a big thank you to Tech Solutions for being the proud title sponsor of our studio at the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center here in Blacksburg. All right, rolling along here a little bit with the football side of things. So since we last recorded a full-time podcast, Virginia Tech and James Franklin have added 6 commits, headlined by quarterback Peter Bork, he comes in from the high school ranks. So David, we'll tee it up with you, and then obviously Andy will go back and forth. What are your thoughts on the commitments that James Franklin and the Hokies have brought in as of late, and obviously certainly heightening the recruiting trail for Virginia Tech recently too?
Well, I think the thing with Bork is, he's one of the highest rated commits, period, but specifically quarterbacks at Virginia Tech. Massive offer list. 24/7 Sports had him as a top 80 recruit nationally. He was the unanimous number one player in Massachusetts. He's from Tabor Academy up there in Marion. But number 107 by Rivals, number 126 by ESPN. And he is, I think, the quarterback prototype that James Franklin and this staff are looking for. And he's the real deal. Really interested to see his impact. And I think you see he's helping recruit the rest of this class. Just we recorded this on Wednesday morning. Just Tuesday, Hokies picked up Jordan Karhoff, a tight end, 4-star, unanimous across the board. He Miami, Texas A&M, Ohio State, Penn State were among some of the schools that were interested in him. Caden Buchanan, an offensive lineman, the other day, committed on Memorial Day, picked the Hokies over Kentucky, Missouri, and NC State. Javian Jones-Priest, a running back from Texas A&M, who ran a 10:41 100 meters. Really, really fast running back. Chose the Hokies over Oklahoma State, SMU, TCU, Oregon. They're doing really well on the recruiting trail right now. Elijah Butler is a safety from St. Francis Academy in Baltimore, top 10 player in Maryland according to On3. His top 6 included Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Maryland, Oregon, and Virginia Tech. And then Chase Johnson was the last one. He's a 4-star corner from Swainsboro, Georgia, listed as a 4-star by ESPN. I'm trying to find the rest of his offers. Arizona State, Arkansas, Auburn, Florida State, Florida, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Michigan, visited Tennessee and Florida and Alabama and Miami. So, they're getting a lot of high quality guys in right now, and it's up to number 13, I believe.
Currently, yes.
In the 24/7 composite rankings. The staff knows what they're doing as far as the recruiting trail right now, and been really impressive. Obviously, Bork is the highlight.
Yeah.
And this was the promise of James Franklin coming on board, is that you were going to recruit and be in these battles more than you were previously. And you listed off all the teams that they were up against. It's not like they're up against Coastal Carolina and Marshall and Appalachian State. That felt like it was the norm for a while there, and the actual schools that they could beat out for some of these recruits. So I think it's Franklin. I think there's a financial backing behind it. I don't think in today's age you recruit well with no money behind it. All these teams in the top 20 have some money that they're offering these schools or these players coming out of high school. Bork, look at Bork. He was a Michigan commit. Michigan generally knows what it's doing with quarterbacks. So, if you had a guy that was going to go to Michigan that's now coming here, and I know all these, it's always hilarious in the aftermath of somebody committing, these other fan bases, and Virginia Tech fans do this too. When somebody goes somewhere else, we didn't want him. We didn't want him anyway. He wasn't he wasn't a take. All the cope and the rationalization.
Non-committable offer.
Yeah, that's always what it was. He wasn't a take. It's whatever. Yeah, they got the player. However it went down. You look at the number of blue chip guys that they're getting. I think they're 4 consensus guys in the 247 Sports composite. More than that, when various recruiting services that you look into, and how they're ranking these guys. This is what James Franklin does. He stacks up these recruiting classes. Now this class right now, and I know will up the excitement to everybody for this year. These players aren't here. They won't be here until after the season. So this season, none of these guys are going to contribute because they're still in high school at this point. But when you look at long-term, how you're building a program, this is how you do it. You stack recruiting classes like this out of high school. You have to retain them now. That's a big thing too, is retention. And, a lot of these guys will come in and they will not be ready to play right away. Even if they're highly ranked recruits like this, you're going to have to redshirt. You're going to have to keep these guys for a couple years to develop. We'll see how that goes. But, I think Franklin's thing is you look at how he recruited to Penn State, and now I know Penn State fans will say, hey, he didn't recruit that great when he was here. It's like, come on now. He did. If you stack these classes year after year after year, you'll have a roster that's able to compete on the field because you'll have the depth of talent there. Recruiting rankings, I think you can look at individual recruits and go, yes, there's a lot of volatility there. That individual recruit could succeed or fail. And you see highly ranked guys bust all the time. You see low ranked guys succeed all the time. In the macro sense, these team rankings are pretty good predictors for how you will do over the long haul. There are teams that still outperform that, and there are still teams that underperform that. But the best way to build a program is to recruit at a high level, retain those guys, and have some margin for error. So if somebody is a bust that doesn't work out, that was a blue chip guy, you have somebody behind them that is equally talented or close to it.
This is, I think, the Bork commitment too is really gotten the fan base fired up as far as
highest ranked quarterback commit since Tyrod.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Depending on how you're going to classify Logan Thomas.
Yeah.
I think he was more of an athlete tight end coming out of high
but
school.
You're talking very long time. And both Chris Coleman and Brandon Patterson wrote pieces kind of analyzing Bork's game a little bit. Chris called him the prototypical pocket passer with a little something extra. But I thought my biggest takeaway from what Chris wrote about it was it's a legit recruiting win for Virginia Tech. And his final three were Penn State, Georgia, and Virginia Tech, and the Hokies won. And as Andy said, those schools might be like, our offers weren't legit, or, we decided to go elsewhere. But it's a big win for Virginia Tech. Yeah. And we're very early in the cycle still. Interested to see how this kind of compounds as we get farther along into the summer.
It's interesting. One of the 15 commits so far is from Virginia. How long before people are like, they're not taking enough local guys? It's like, I think if they're taking talented guys from around the country, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I think people will forgive this, lack of Commonwealth presence in the recruiting class if they have a class that's top 15, or, we'll see if it can stay up that high. But, if it is, that's among the best classes ever recorded here at Virginia Tech. And, there are various rankings and, composite rankings or individual sites. I think the highest they've had was like 18 or something like that. It was Rivals one year. I think it was like 18. Like, historically, Tech has not recruited at a top 15 level in its history. And, you get before the recruiting rankings and the business kind of took off. Like, that Michael Vick class was a really good one. So I would love to see what the actual rankings would have been on a class like that. But in the Rivals era or the recruiting service era, they've never really put together classes on a consistent basis ranked this high.
And that's, as Andy said, that's the James Franklin promise. The current breakdown of states, since Andy brought it up, they got 4 commits from Maryland, 2 each from Georgia and North Carolina, 1 each from Alabama, Massachusetts, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and Texas. And then Virginia. Virginia Tech has 1 commit from Virginia, and it's the wide receiver from Roanoke, DeMarcus Brown, Roanoke Catholic. Nice. So, yeah, it certainly makes recruiting a lot more enjoyable when the fan base is engaged.
By the way, for those just listening, Will is no longer with us, so it's not like he's not contributing. Will is no longer here. So Will is in the other room right now. So
no longer. He just moved to the other room. He's not dead.
Yeah, it's okay. He didn't pass away.
Very sorry for your loss.
He didn't pass away. No, to your point, Andy. So, like, on a consistent basis, obviously we are well before the finish line on this whole thing. Do you think under James Franklin, Virginia Tech can consistently recruit at the top 15 level?
We'll see. Every new coach sort of gets that new coach bump. Mm-hmm. I think you even saw it a little bit with Fuente, saw it a little bit with Pry, certainly relative to how they recruited the rest of their times here. I think you're definitely seeing that with Franklin. That said, is the money there? I think that will tell you whether you're going to be able to consistently recruit at that level. Because if you don't have that money, like, I'm sorry, you could be as charming and persuasive as any head coach out there, but players are going to take the money versus not taking the money. So I think Tech has a good combination right now I think winning on the field would help a little bit too, if they could actually do that and make this more of an attractive place that goes to big games and could potentially play in a playoff sometime down the line. But right now, yeah, I mean, James Franklin's not lost a game right now. He's recruiting at a high level. Everything is sort of, coming up Millhouse for him right now in this program. And I think you just kind of ride that success in the early going.
Yeah, I think if they continue to win, or I say continue, they start to win.
Continue the momentum.
Yeah, and continue the momentum. I think you can see him, I would say top 20 for sure. The interesting thing is Tech has 15 commits. There are some schools that don't have double digits. So
that's the other side of it. Is it volume? I think the quality of players in this class, if you look at the average recruit ranking, they're pretty high as well. So I mean, it's not like Texas Tech high. Texas Tech and Texas A&M are way up there.
Yeah,
that's like, oh, they're in the 90s for an average recruit ranking. But I think you look at how Virginia Tech is doing, even on an average ranking right now, it's pretty good relative to its historical norm.
Yeah. But it's interesting when you dig down into like the actual roster of it all, they had a big signing class in December. They took 10 linemen, 7 on the offensive side of the ball, right? And so now they're prioritizing some other positions. They've got, I think, 3 running backs in this class. Like it's got some wide receivers. Obviously got a quarterback in Bork. They added a quarterback in Troy Hune. So now your quarterback class is a bunch of blue chippers. Ethan Grunkemeyer, Bryce Baker, AJ Brand moved to wide receiver, and Keldon Ryan is the other quarterback left in that room, and he's like the lone non-blue chipper. But like you're assembling talent across all positions, and that's going to be the interesting thing is it won't show up on the field in terms of this recruiting class, obviously this fall. Mm-hmm. But like when you continue to add, like next offseason should be very interesting in terms of what guys stay and what guys go in the transfer portal. And then you get this new batch of guys come in. And I would expect to see the talent level just continue to gradually rise.
One more time, let's step aside and hear from Tyris Homes here on Tech Sideline.
Are you ready for a custom home tailored to your distinctive lifestyle? At Tyris Homes, a leading custom home builder in the New River Valley, we pride ourselves on crafting exceptional residences that our clients love to call home. Whether you're a first-time buyer, a growing family in search of more room, or an active adult seeking a relaxing retreat, looking for a high-end custom home that offers luxury and sophistication, we have the perfect solution for you. Discover how we can bring your dream home to life at TyrisHomes.com. That's TYRIS Homes.com.
And a big thank you to Tyris Homes for, again, being a proud sponsor of us here at TechSideline.com. All right, so Virginia Tech baseball is heading back to the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2022. The Hokies are going out west to Los Angeles. They will be the number 2 seed in the number 1 overall seeds regional, UCLA. They will draw Cal Poly in the opening round. That is at on Friday, I should say, at 8 p.m. out in LA. Really fun last month of the season, David, to get the Hokies not only in the NCAA tournament, but comfortably in the NCAA tournament as well.
Yeah, I mean, they've been playing really great baseball. I think they're like, they've won 10 of the last 15 around there. And they've won a bunch of series down the stretch, you know, at home, on the road. Like, they just went out to Cal earlier this month and took 2 from the Golden Bears and won that series on Saturday. They've been playing their best baseball of the year, kind of the inverse of last couple John Sheff teams, 23, 24, 25. Hokies played pretty well up until early mid-April and then kind of faltered down the stretch. They've been really fun to watch, and I think they even surprised some people. Their RPI was a little low, around 42.
42, I think.
But they're number 2 seed, which kind of tells you in terms of strength of schedule. They played a lot of really tough teams. I know their Tech's record, Tech's record isn't outstanding per se, but I think you look at the strength of schedule, you factor in who they played. I mean, they're 30-24, 15-15, but a number 2 seed factors in getting a single bye in the ACC tournament, being up there, playing well against ACC opponents. It's crazy to think that, you know, Tech took a game from Georgia Tech earlier this year in Atlanta. Georgia Tech is a top 16 seed in this. Hokies played North Carolina close in the ACC tournament last week down in Charlotte. So very interested to see what the Hokies can do. Obviously, UCLA is really, really, really good, but this is a unique experience given that this is only the second regional they've made under Chef. The other one was 2022 when they were one of the best teams in the country, hosted a regional and a super regional, and ran into a buzzsaw of an Oklahoma team. This is really cool. I know they're one of, I think David Teal put it out, that Virginia Tech is one of 2 teams along with Yale that has to travel 3 time zones in this NCAA tournament. And Yale has to go out to Oregon or Oregon State.
Oregon.
Hokies have to go out to California, but go out there with a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah, Yale's going out into a regional that has Washington State, Oregon State, and Oregon.
Yeah.
It's like I've seen the memes out there. It was like Yale is like eating lunch, and then all these other ones are fighting in the background between it. Yeah, a little surprised about the 2 seed. I mean, I guess they are the lowest 2 seed because they're against the number 1 seed in team in the country. Yeah, I thought going into this, the talk was like, is Virginia Tech going to get in? And they must have felt somewhat comfortable. They did not trot Brett Renfro out in the ACC tournament in either of those games, and I don't. Did they say why he didn't pitch in those? Was it
Chef
just rest?
said it wasn't his turn to pitch for the first one. It was rest.
Yeah,
The
to
one
me
against
it could
Carolina
feel like, hey,
surprised me a little
we're
bit.
in at this point. Let's not burn this
Yeah,
guy here.
it's a
Let's
load
get him
management.
rested up fully because he really carried a heavy load for them down the stretch there. And the way he pitched on Friday nights, I think, is a big reason why they got into this tournament. So you're going to want him to be at his best for when they get into this regional. And interesting going out west. I mean, you get in it, and baseball is such a random sport that you see teams that aren't the 1 seed emerge all the time, even against really top teams like UCLA. So you're in it, you got a shot, you go out there and see how you can do it. Maybe the pressure's off a little bit. I don't think anybody's expecting Virginia Tech to advance in this regional when they're against the 1 seed UCLA, and it's not like the last time where they were the host team and expected to advance and then they didn't. Maybe that frees you up a little bit to go out there.
Yeah, Chef talked about it. He said he was surprised. Dylan Tuff wrote a great article for TechSideline.com from Chef's post NCAA tournament selection show thoughts, and said he was surprised a little bit by the seeding, but also mentioned that, like when you're the host team, you got a lot of pressure to win, and that can kind of build up a little bit. And if you're Virginia Tech, you just got to continue to apply pressure. But what I did find interesting, Dylan added a nugget. This isn't the first time John Chef's taken a team out to UCLA. In 2015, Maryland was the number 3 seed out there. Number 1 overall seed UCLA. The Terps took the regional. So no stranger to going out there and winning games in a very tough regional. Obviously, they've got Cal Poly, and then would either play UCLA or St. Mary's in the second game. If the bats for Virginia Tech can go off like they did last week against Notre Dame, a game you were at in Charlotte, Carter.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
I think if they can score, obviously I don't expect them to score 17 runs every game, but if they can put together good offense like that, I think combined with a pitcher like Brett Renfro, I think Griffin Stig and Logan Eisenrich have both been pretty good as of late. I think you put it all together and you can make a little bit of a run.
Just some food for thought as well. So Virginia Tech at one point in the year, after losing that series at Boston College, was 16-18. They were 7-11 in ACC play. And again, they comfortably got in the NCAA tournament. I think a lot of people were doubting midway through the year, in the middle of April, that the Hokies were going to get in, and played a fantastic final month of baseball. And I think you alluded to it as well, David. People, and it's a fair complaint, but the last couple of years have been talking about, the Hokies have collapsed down the stretch. Well, not saying they intentionally did it, but the schedule lended itself this year for it to go differently because you played those 3 games in Texas. You played Georgia Tech early on. You played Virginia early on. You played Miami early on. And by the middle of April, you had a quote unquote weaker half of your ACC schedule, and the Hokies took advantage. This is probably Virginia Tech's best baseball team, obviously on paper, since 2022. And I think that's probably accurate as well. The other thing too, and this is all public information at this point, I think, and I get, the fan base's gripes with some things with baseball, but I will say this. Virginia Tech and Whit Babcock put this out publicly a couple weeks ago. Hokies were only at 17 scholarships this year for baseball. Most of the ACCs in the low 20s, if not higher. Carolina, Georgia Tech were fully funded to close to 34 scholarships. So for Virginia Tech to get into the NCAA tournament this year with that level of resources, when it is going to enhance next year, I think is a tremendous accomplishment for John Sheff and the Hokies. So yeah, I think it's kind of one of those, see it how it goes once you get out there. I was shocked they went out to UCLA, but again, when you're the 2 seed and you're in theory the number 32 overall seed, that's how it should happen. So, and again, the Hokies have been playing good baseball. So, with that being said, you got something else?
I was going to say, since losing that Boston College series, and if you recall, Chris was there.
Oh yeah, at Fenway.
Chris was there at Fenway.
I don't think Chris watched much of that game. No. I think he was just like, I'm just going to hang out in the bar out in the outfield.
Yeah. Since they were 16 and 18 after that, Carter, they're 14 and 6 since. They have been on a ball. They've almost been as hot as the Blacksburg Bombers.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Nobody's that hot.
No,
yeah.
They had to rain us out last night.
Only the rain could cool us down.
4-0. But yeah, I think the fact that they have put this together, given the resources, Carter, which probably aren't talked about often, that's not something you necessarily want to highlight that much because it's not necessarily a great recruiting pitch. But John Sheff has recruited well. He's put together good classes, and as he told Dylan Teft, there's a quote in here about injuries. Our teams have been pretty talented over the last 4 years. Knock on wood, we have not had colossal season-ending injuries. We had 17 major injuries over the last 3 years.
Yeah, especially on the mound.
They've been decimated. I think the one you really point to this year is Clay Grady.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy because I think this is the second year in a row that he hadn't really played. But you have a guy like him and your season's a little bit even better. The fact that they've been able to stay healthy and kind of weather the storm after a rough start at times, I think shows a lot about where this team is headed, and interested to see if they can string something together this weekend.
Yeah, I think the staff needed it too. I mean, this is year 9, and they only had the one NCAA appearance to show for it. So I think if you're at a school for 10 years or approaching 10 years, you have to have some postseason success behind it. So I think getting this and getting into the tournament this year, it eases a little bit of the pressure that might be on this coaching staff going forward. I'm not going to say it eliminates it because, you still have to do well and get there. But getting this bid, I think, is a big thing for the staff. 2-9 looks a lot better than 1-9. Let's put it that way.
With that being said, what's coming up on TechSideline.com? I know Andy's heading out of town. The start of June's coming up here in the next couple of days. But what's coming up on TSL as the summer starts to hit?
There's going to be some football scheduling coming out, I believe, soon. And we'll have full coverage of the Board of Visitors meeting next week. The recruiting cycle will continue to spin, of course. So, yeah, I'm going to hold down the fort while Chris and Andy are. You're going to Vegas, right?
I'm going to Vegas.
Nice.
Yeah, well, Chris
Mike Nislik, we're going out there.
Nice.
Virginia Tech reunion out there.
While Andy's gambling and Chris is in Switzerland in the Alps, I will be at the Board of Visitors meeting.
Nice. What about you, Andy?
Them's the breaks. This week, based off a mailbag question I got last week, I'm like, this would be better to break it out. I'm going to sort of rank the ACC road trips in terms of stadium experience, city, travel ease. One of those things where you sort of assign point values to all of it and see how it turns out. So I'm going to do that for the ACC schools. I'm not going to include SMU and Cal because I've not visited those yet. I will be doing that coming up this year. So, we'll see how those go this week. But I'm hoping to do that Thursday. If not, it'll run sometime.
I'm looking forward to reading that. Because I know we've talked about that before. So I'm looking forward to reading that. But you have to send a pic of the new ballpark under construction in Vegas. I heard it's like right by the strip
I'll
down
walk
there.
by it. I went a couple years ago and went down there, and I'm like, they're building that here. It doesn't look like the lot's big enough for it, but Vegas knows how to cram things into a small space like that, and we'll be interested to see how they do that.
That'd be a good spot.
2 other things coming up. On Thursday, Will has it scheduled to publish Randy Jones' financial article, which we do every year. Look back, dig through the financials for Virginia Tech athletics. And then Will, since Chris is out of town, Will always does it whenever Chris leaves in May. Will is doing an Inside TSL edition of the Friday Q&A on Friday. And I believe, Nick, he'll be in here with you too.
Yeah, I noticed that on the schedule, and I was like, oh, cool. Sounds like we're doing a Friday Q&A with Will. And then we'll have Bud Foster Thursday, which is tomorrow. My goodness, this short week is really messing with my mind. So that'll be tomorrow with Andy on set, and Chris is not going to zoom in from Europe. As funny that would be, though. Yeah, that's what we got for video. So, yeah, a little shock there when I saw that yesterday. I was like, oh, all right, I guess Will's going to be on set for Friday.
Nice.
So, Carter, you got to host that.
On Friday?
Yeah, none of our interns are in town.
That's fair. That's very fair. That's very
You
fair.
want to do it?
Yeah, I'll be around.
We'll have Andy host instead. Little jump scare.
Andy hosted a podcast back with your former employer, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
A failed podcast, but a podcast
Okay.
nonetheless.
Okay.
I've sat in that chair before.
Nice. Graded plenty of podcasts. All right, so for Andy Bitter, for Will Stewart, who is here for the first of 3 segments, for David Cunningham, Nick Brown, I'm Carter Hill saying so long for episode 486 of the Tech Sideline podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and we will talk to you very soon.